Okay, now, what's happening? This is Bird at Bird Surf Shed with Kenny Lewis on the cam again, and we're going to talk about one of my most favorite subjects. A bunch of subjects. We're going to talk about family, friends, board designs, and kneeboarding. If you don't know my background, I come from a family of 9 kids, 4 brothers, 5 sisters. All of us brothers started out kneeboarding. My oldest brother Mark, my next oldest brother Rex, myself, and then my youngest brother Kirk. We all kneeboarded, and there were times that all of us would be out at Big Rock at once, which is pretty interesting, having 4 people at the Rock that only holds about 10 people, 4 of us being brothers, so that's a pretty interesting thing. So we all grew up as kneeboarders, and mainly as soon as we were able to, we all started off riding Steve Lis's when we got to that point. That would have been probably about 71, I think, is the first year we got a Lis, maybe 72 at the latest. And today I'm going to show you a couple of those. This one in the background is my brother Rex's pipeline board. So he went to Hawaii. I think his first trip was 72. So this board is probably vintage 71 into 72. Very traditional Lis Fish at the time. Flatter rocker, wide tails, probably has a 13 plus inch tail. And they all were 21 inches wide. The consistency on the width was very, very much the same. They started to get a little narrower in the nose by this time. The original, or the first generations, were much blunter noses. And because this one was destined for pipeline, it might have been made a little bit narrower at the time. Again, very, very traditional Steve Lis type of fish. Slight little concave in it. That, again, is an addition. Earlier boards were flatter bottomed and traditional Gephardt fins. And these, at the time, were pretty much straight backs. They got a little tiny sway, but for all intents and purposes, that would have been what we call the slant back or the straight back template of guppies. Old primitive guppies. You can see the foiling there. Obviously, was in the younger days of him making fins. If you saw this right now, he'd throw up. So he's gotten much better at doing fins, obviously, over the years in terms of his foliage. It's got my old local Team Bird logo. No, it's not a rip-off of Donald's bird. I'm not sure when Takayama started using a bird, but I've had that since back in the Select days. And I'm trying to think of the guy that actually designed it, Butch Cornelius, who's a notable artist from San Diego, really into cartooning and things of that sort. Still with us, I heard, up in Oregon. So Butch, if you hear this, hey. Very well used. This board he took to Hawaii, and as my mind recollects, before he even got to the North Shore, it flew off the car and got destroyed. The nose, the whole board got beat up. So it was well used before he even got a chance to really use it. Tons and tons of years of waves on this board. Really strong. I mean, this thing's heavy. It's probably 12 pounds, 14 pounds. Because, again, no leashes, right? There were no leashes, number one, and we sure weren't going to use them even after they came out. So it had to be made strong. Amazingly, the fins have never been taken off of it. And it's just a real good example of a early Lis fish that has seen some serious pipeline usage. Got lost, got sold, did whatever, and then I recovered it about 2 or 3 years, thanks to my good friend Bob. He had it in his collection, and I told him, hey, that's mine, or my brother's old board, and I finagled it back out of him. So that's one of Rex's. Then yesterday, my oldest brother Mark came on in, and he hasn't kneeboarded in a long time. I knew he was holding on to another Lis, so I asked him if I could get that board, and I traded him an Apple Watch for it, because he needs an Apple Watch and I need another Lis. So I got him an Apple Watch in exchange for this one. They're both pretty much the same height. They're 5'2s, 5'3s, I guess, which at the time was kind of long for kneeboards. The original kneeboards we rode were sub 5 foot. And again, for Hawaii, I think my big one for Hawaii was 5'9" when I went over there, and my short one was 5'4", 5'5". So these are just your atypical knee boards. Now this one is about 10 years newer than that one. This was made for my brother Mark in about 82, I'm supposing. And this actual board was glassed at the Castor factory. Bill did me a favor and he glassed this up for me. The plug was put in after the fact, did not use leashes. Even back in the 80s, still we didn't use cords very much at all. And that's witness to the fact that this board has, it looks clean here, but if you look at it closer, the bottom is fairly clean. The deck has quite a few little dings and stuff from hitting the rocks. A lot of dents in it. Something interesting to note on this board, I'm not sure if you can pick out those dents, Kenny, but on most knee boards, especially the ones of my brother Rex, he only kneeboarded going left 90% of the time because, that's just, we surf the rock, you surf pipeline. So you would have a heavy dented side on the inside rail from your left knee, and then sometimes the right would be pristine. This one is opposite. The right is more dented because my brother Mark, left-handed guy, he loved going right more. So this board spent a lot of time at New Break, and he surfs Sunset a lot on this board. So, it has more dents that are consistently even because he'd go to the rock, he'd surf rights as well. So the dent pattern is more pronounced on both sides. Here's your Gephardt fins. There's a good example of how much more clean the foils got, over the years that he did them. And these are what we would call sway back fins. So the idea on a sway back is that you kept the depth of the fin at the 5-inch, and instead of being 9x5s, eventually, you dropped to 8x5s, and then we got all the way down to maybe 7x5s. So you decreased that fin, and that gave you a little bit less drive, but as we got into it, the turnability was more important than the full drive. The boards were longer anyways, they had a straighter rail line, so whatever drive you lost off of moving some of the area from the fin out of the fin, you picked it up by lengthening the board and straightening the rail line. So it makes sense. Small fishes, I still believe, should have straight backs. If you're riding something 5 foot under, I prefer to have straight backs on them. Or if you're going to ride really big waves that are super lined up, you might want to think about that as well. This is considerably lighter than that board. That board is glass, basically industrial strength, meaning it probably had 3 layers of 6 on the deck, maybe even probably 8 ounce at that time. Could have been 3 layers and 2. That was standard for knee boards then. Weight wasn't a factor, no cord into the rock, they get destroyed. So making them stronger was better. And it wasn't easy to get a Stevie back then either. So you wanted to make sure the boards could survive. This one again is much more detailed on the glass job because it did come out of the Castor factory. You can see bitch and pin line airbrushed, and it starts thick in the nose and then it tapers out to the tail to nothing. The fins on this have both been repaired before. Pin line here, you can see where it goes continuous all the way down to the rail. And then on this side, it's missing some of the pin line because obviously the fin had been repaired in that zone. So the pin line got sanded off of it. Weight difference, that thing is probably 15 pounds. This one's probably like 12 pounds, or give or take. Maybe that's 12 and this is 10 or whatever. But quite a bit lighter because, again, at that time, not being a Hawaiian board and being that it came out of the Castor glass factory, I just don't think those guys got it. I asked them to make it heavier, but they're no way going to make it as heavy as what that board was, because by that early 80 time, lightness was definitely more of a factor in all the surfing. And so what I've got now is quite a few of my brother's boards. I'm going to do a homage to us all. I'm going to put all my boards up in a section that start from the oldest list, Rex's first board made in I think 71 that I've got hanging right now, all the way up to the latest list, the last list, which will either be this one or I'm hoping to pry one out of my younger brother Kirk's hands. He's still sitting on a couple in Kauai and I don't think he's riding them. So I'm going to see if I can get one so I can complete the quad Fectra, and we'll have a board from Kirk, me, Rex, and Mark. And when we get those up, I'll have Kenny step on in and then we'll do another little quick rundown on the boards and more of a history of my kneeboarding family. So there you've got the family, you've got the boards, you got Stevie, and just another kind of short but sweet video on fishes. I know it might get redundant for some people, but I could talk about them all day long because there's major differences to the way fishes are made by quite a few people, from the thickness of the tail to the finish work on the way Stevie would blend it here. A lot of people keep them very thick all the way through. Stevie fine foils things a lot more, and that's something that a lot of people miss nowadays. Side note, there's a Lermo wing fish. That's probably going to be a twinser. Larry's shaping out of the shed. We're honored to have him here when he's up from Mex. And, you know, apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. He might twinser that one up. It might be quad fin, but still very, very traditional to Stevie's original design. Obviously narrower in the nose for a longer board and more modernized. But if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's about all I got to say about that. See you next time.